behavior needs consequences. Where do those safety suggestions go? I was thrilled when Bob said you have safety suggestion boxes and people are using them, and when they make a suggestion, do you get a response back? Do people say, yes, at least, maybe you didn't follow my suggestion, but at least I know you read it. I've gone to many, many plants where those boxes have been taken down. Why? Because nobody uses them anymore. Why? Because when people made a suggestion, there was no consequence. Didn't even think you cared. Habitual responding to mindful fluency. A lot of behavior analysts say you have to make safe behavior a habit. I used to say that. I used to say we want safety to become habitual. Now I'm convinced I was wrong. I don't want habit, I want mindful fluency. How many buckle up your safety belt out of habit? Without even thinking, just buckle up. And I want to tell you that's good. But great is if you think about it. Why would I want you to think about it when you buckle up? Well, you might notice that somebody else in the car is not buckled up. You know, you might really pay attention to the safety values of others. You might also start talking to yourself about being a safety leader. You know, when you do stuff for safety, when no one's watching, talk to yourself about, I'm doing this. This must be of value for me. You are who you are. You are what you do when no one's watching. But if you don't really know what you do or recognize what you do when no one's watching, you're not going to feed that value. Now, I'm not even going to, this next thing is too big, so I'm just going to go forget it because we don't have time. Some other time. We'll move on. From managing behavior to leading people. Is there a difference between management and leadership? By the way, this is not a slam on management. Managers get their positions assigned to them, and we need managers. Managers hold us accountable. I was listening to Pat over here telling me his processes of holding people accountable. And we need to do that. I need managers in my life. Leaders inspire people to be self-motivated. Managers can be leaders. So there's a difference between, I'm going to talk, here's my managing behavior slide. I've done this. You got to try this. You know, why do you just give them 20%? In the States, we just give 20% gratuity. I don't. I put a little, your tip so far, put some money underneath it, and you watch their behaviors. What's that? Well, that's your tip so far. Do better, you'll get more. Do worse, you'll get less. They will change their behavior. You will get more attention at your table than anybody else. Now that's a way of showing that's managing behavior. From other-directed to self-directed. Self-directed. Now we're into the book. Why aren't you wearing your safety glasses? I didn't see you coming. And there are situations out there that's why people do it, you know. You told me some stories about that, man. It's true. Will he put on his hard hat? No one around? If he's self-motivated, he will. Will he put on a sterile mask? If he's self-motivated. All right, check this out. The more outside control, the less perceived inside control. Now wait, I'm not telling you to stop your outside control. I'm just telling you to understand self-motivation from the research. Let's just see some of these basic principles. The more obvious the external control, the less the self-motivation. Sometimes you can influence people. You know this with your kids. You can influence people in subtle ways. You don't have to come across like I'm controlling you. Become a good listener. Ask more questions. And then subtly get the conversation to go towards what you'd like them to do. That's called non-directive counseling. When we teach, when my partners teach people-based safety coaching, peer-to-peer, we have a checklist listing the safe definitions and the at-risk definitions, and the peer with permission is watching the other peer. That's critical, but what's more critical is how do you present the data to the person? After the observation is over, how do you show them the data? How how you show them the data can make all the difference in the world. What we recommend is merely show them the data. Don't interpret. Don't make a comment about, you only got 75%. Don't do that. They see it. Let them internalize it. Let them make their excuses. That's their excuses. If you let people give their excuses, sometimes they'll come around to saying what you want them to say. Mild threats influence more self-motivation than severe threats. And I can talk about a number of research projects that support that idea. If you come across, but notice, if the mild threat is sufficient, if it's sufficient, large incentives can hinder self-motivation. Why are you doing that? For the big reward, for the big bonus. I worked for a company in Indianapolis a few weeks ago. They really mean well. They really want to be the best. They want to develop an actively caring safety culture. But they have in their company a bonus system whereby 50% bonus depends on the injury rate. So if they have an injury higher than a certain goal, let's say 4, that was one of their, then everybody loses their bonus. And I must tell you that these people mean well, but they just never thought about how that incentive influences behavior. If you're a temporary worker at this plant, you don't get the incentive, you don't get the bonus. However, your injury will influence everybody else's. So if you're a temp worker and you get injured, and that can count for one of the 4. Well, also very interesting is the first 3, it's that 4th one. Oh, if you're the one that caused the 4th injury, and we lost our $800 at the end of the year. Now, I hope you're saying, how ridiculous. These people meant well. I'm hoping that they will change that. If they just do that as a result of my day-long workshop with them, I'm happy. Perceived choice enhances self-motivation. Check this out. Perceived choice is greater when you're working to achieve success than when you're working to avoid failure. Success seekers perceive more choice than failure avoiders. And by the way, your common sense tells you that. It tells you that, you know. Just driving your car. If you're constantly looking around for a police officer, you know, to see that you're going the right, if that's your paradigm while you're driving, you feel controlled. You can have all the other reasons for driving the speed limit that are more positive. There's the book. And the book talks about these 3 factors. And now the biggest criticism I get at safety conferences is this. Geller, we like your principles. We can't argue with them. It's research supported. But here's our problem. You don't give us enough real-world steps, real-world examples, you know? I want to know, what should I do? That's why we wrote this book. Because this book will show you one case study in a story form. And by the way, it's facts. Everything in this book really happened. From the start of Joanne losing her job, and then traveling around to different companies to try to understand self-motivation. So we teach, these are the 3 C words, folks. These are perceptions. By the way, self-motivation is perception. It's a perception. It's a paradigm. I perceive choice. I perceive I'm competent, and I perceive a sense of community. If you perceive a sense of relatedness to other people, a sense of competence or self-efficacy, and a sense of choice, you're more likely to be self-motivated. So here's your challenge, leaders. By the way, I hope you hear me as a teacher. Not me, the teacher. You, the teacher. You are an elite group that gave up a whole day and give up a day tomorrow and more. To give up your time and your effort. You need to take this, and I hope this is a takeaway. You need to teach this to others. They need to learn this. You need to influence your culture. So, leaders, figure out ways to increase the perception of choice, competence, and community among your people. Sometimes the way you word an email can depreciate the perception of choice. Sometimes the way you communicate can influence those, one way or the other. Briefly, I know you guys want to go, don't you? Briefly, I want to tell you a brief experience. Is it okay? Can we have? We went to a company, Shaw Industry, and they read the book when no one's watching. And in that book, we talk about 9 questions. They gave these 9 questions to 40% of the workers at 7 different sites. Shaw Industry is the largest rug manufacturers in the United States. And they simply said, on a scale from 0 to 10, rank, I am heard. I belong. I am learning. You know, and I love the fact that you guys at the plant I saw today is all about a learning institution. You know, Bryce talked about that in our meeting today. Learning institution. So, on a scale from 1 to 10, where do you rate? And then they got the numbers. Look at that. That is the mean scale value as it relates to their OSHA recordable injury rate. So, the higher they score, this is the mean for the plant. The correlation here, by the way, is 0.88, which is pretty high for this kind of data. And the higher they scored, the lower their total recordable injury rate. They were so excited by this that they called me up and they said, "Hey Doc, can you send us some students? We want to do focus group interviews, and we want to talk to the people, and we want to ask them, what would it take to get the score from 0 to 10, to get your score higher? You know, what would it take for more people believing they are heard, for more people believing they are learning, for more people believing they belong?" They had these focus group meetings. Look at some more data. We recorded everything they said. And I got positive comments and I got negative comments. Look at the relationship across 7 different plants. Actually 5 plants. We only went to 5 out of the 7. And look, this is the lower the rate, the more positive the comments were. The higher the injury rate. I mean, all this says is verbal behavior is a measure of your culture, and that culture affects injury rate. This is not rocket science, but it's nice to see verification. And, yeah, right. How people talk. Look, negative comments were much more frequent at the plant with greater injury. Thank you, Mary Lou, for buying this one, for telling us about this. Safety is a priority. Safety is a core value. And by the way, I go to some plants and I say, so is safety a value? And I love it. Unions do this to me lots of times. You bet it is. It's a core value. I love it. Because when I get the thing